Hello everyone and welcome back to another gaming video. I recently picked up from Gale Force 9 Aliens, Another Glorious Day in the Core, based on the second Alien film by James Cameron. This game focuses largely on the events set up in that movie. So you're going to be exploring the colony on LV-426, as well as the atmosphere processing plant on that same planet. So there are maps in here. The maps are double-sided. So you have a map of Haley's Hope, which is the kind of the settlement that the colonists have set up, and then you have the atmosphere processing plant on the other side of that, where the first major encounter between the Marines and the aliens takes place. This review may have spoilers for Aliens, so of course if you haven't seen the movie, maybe skip this review. But again, if you haven't seen this movie, you probably wouldn't really be getting the references in this game or what the game is all about. So if you've seen the movie, you're going to definitely know what's going on. So what we have here is, and here's the back of the box as well. So the game takes between 1 to 2 hours to play, goes between 1 and 6 players, and its ages 14 and up, so it does have solo play. What the box contains is 4 double-sided game boards. I was just kind of explaining those a second ago. 23 plastic figurines, so you have 7 character figurines plus 16 aliens. There are 45 motion tracker cards, 60 endurance cards, 7 character cards, one for each of the characters, of course. A rulebook, a card dock to hold the cards in, or basically it's like a thing you put on the board, and it has markers for your deck, your discard pile, or your deck, your exhaust pile, and your discard pile. That's what the card dock is. 9 mission cards, so there's going to be various missions from the movie, as well as missions that are just basically what they call bug hunts, where you are going through just trying to eliminate all the aliens before you get killed. There are 8 dials for the characters. There's 7 dials for the characters, which these are their aiming dials, and then there is 1 dial to track the turn order, basically, or round order. There are 84 tokens and 3 dice. So one thing, and I'm going to reiterate this again when I get to my pros and cons for this game is a miniatures game. It's a board game as well, but the miniatures on the back here are not pre-assembled. So you do need some clippers and potentially some glue to glue the figurines together. You can, of course, also optionally paint them as well. I've painted Newt and I painted Gorman. I don't particularly paint very well, but I have those figures done, and I think I've painted one of the aliens. The aliens plastic, though, is already black, so you could probably just not even paint them at all. I did paint one using a Citadel contrast paint, which I think turned out pretty good. But we're going to go ahead and start looking at some of the components here and kind of overviewing some of the other stuff. And on top of that, there are 2 expansions that have already been released. I have one of them, and that is Ultimate Badasses. This is about $30, I think. I think I pay for that. And it includes 6 additional characters here. So the characters you get, let me get the box again. The characters you get in the core set, you get Hicks, you get Hudson, you get Lieutenant Gorman, Vasquez, Frost, Ripley, and Newt. And I believe, from what I've read, this model of Newt right here is limited to the first print run of the game. I believe she's going to be in the game in subsequent print runs, but the sculpt will be different. So the sculpt you get with getting the game in the first print run is her with the helmet on, saluting Hudson as Hudson's freaking out, and Ripley says, "Oh, this little girl survived longer than that with no weapons and no training," and then she salutes Hudson, and Hudson's like, "Well, you should probably put her in charge then," that kind of thing. The Ultimate Badasses expansion adds in some more figures, so we have these characters on the back here. It also adds in experience cards. So basically, there are small cards that basically you get these little experience cards that basically make your character stronger, gives them different abilities. So in this one, you get Sergeant Apode, you get Dietrich Crow, who's this? Dietrich Crow, Drake, and I think Wersbowski, and you also, or Wersbowski, I think it's pronouncing that correctly, and Burke, the Paul Reiser character. One thing, I was looking through the Paul Reiser character here, they really didn't do Burke very well. The figurine's cool, but there's no kind of, I was expecting maybe like a traitor aspect with his character, based on what he does in the movie, where he is basically telling the Marines to go to this planet under basically false pretenses in order to bring back the alien specimen. That doesn't really come into play. Maybe that'll come into play in a future expansion, but I feel that's kind of a missed opportunity with his character. Alright, so in the game, each character or each player will take a character card, or a character cardboard piece here. For example, that's Vasquez's character card. These character cards are also double-sided, so let's see if I can get this to zoom in. So there is going to be a hero side for each card. This is Vasquez's hero side. So she has these abilities over here. So for example, on her passive ability is she can exhaust 2 cards instead of 3 when using the smart gun. I believe the grunt version does the same thing. That just kind of represents the fact that she knows how to use that gun, and her model actually has that gun on it. And then on her activation, she can reveal a card, and then based on what is revealed, do either of those actions. Her stats are also stronger in hero form than they are in grunt form. So basically, the way it works is each player will choose a character to play, and they'll play on the hero side. So here is, again, we have Vasquez, double-sided. Ripley is also double-sided here, so that's her hero side as well as her grunt side. We have Hicks, so that's the hero side for him and his grunt side. When I played last night, I actually played as Hicks. I'm always kind of torn between Hicks and Hudson. Those are my 2 favorite Marines. I think I lean a little bit more toward Hudson just because of the great dialogue from his character. We have Gorman, that's his hero side. We also have his grunt side there. We have Frost, hero side and grunt side. And we also have Hudson, that's hero side and grunt side. Each character will have a few different statistics on the bottom. So Hudson has a speed of 4, a defense of 6, and a melee of 2, meaning when he activates, when he do a move action, he can move 4 spaces. When he rolls defense, he has to roll below that generally, and his melee is that. He has a tech of 7, so when he does a tech roll, he generally has to roll below that, and he has an aim of 6. Each character will have a different aim number, and when you're firing at an alien, you are going to try to roll on a 10-sided die below that number. And every time you fire, your aim dial, you have these little dials here. So let's say it starts off on 6, I fire, it goes down to 5. Let's say then I can do another attack action, that goes down to 4, making it harder to hit with each attack, which I really, really like that mechanic because it kind of represents them, maybe running out of ammo, or they're getting a little bit more frustrated with the aliens. They're maybe not aiming as well, that kind of thing. There are ways to increase your aim. You can do an aim action to increase it at the beginning of each round. Basically, it also goes back up. So those are the character cards. We also then have, let me get these sorted out here. You have equipment cards. You also have event cards. So each character, when you set up your character in the game, is going to get a weapon and a backup weapon. Most of the weapons you can use, for example, here is that's a pulse rifle. And there's a card cost on there, the card color. So when you're revealing cards from the deck, you have to reveal certain colors to get certain things. But this basically says exhaust a card when you take an attack action with this weapon. So these are what they call endurance cards. You have the whole deck of them, and when you exhaust them, you basically have to take a card from the top of the endurance deck, turn it sideways, and place it in a pile to the right of that, which is the exhaust pile. There are ways to get cards back out of the exhaust pile, because this deck. This is just a small part of it, but this deck is a resource in the game that basically once this deck is empty and the exhaust pile is empty, the game just ends and the players lose. So you kind of have to manage what's in those piles. There are ways to get cards out of the exhaust pile back underneath into the deck. There is a card or a thick piece of cardboard that sits under that deck, and when that card gets to the top, you reshuffle everything that's below it. So you basically have to be very careful about how many cards you're putting into the exhaust pile and how many cards are getting discarded. Because once you run out of cards in your endurance deck and the exhaust deck, the game is just over. So we have various types of cards here. So there's weapons. Here's you get a little reference card here, which tells you there's the alien phase and the marine phase. And then basically, so on the marine phase, you reset your aim dial. You resolve all abilities when you activate. Some cards will say, Let's see here. So when Frost activates, he can move 2 spaces on the map. As you do those, you can equip cards to your character by exhausting cards. Like each weapon will have like a cost associated with it, and you basically pay that cost by exhausting cards. You can then perform up to 2 actions. The actions are move, attack, barricade, aim, interact, card action, or rest. So moving, fairly simple. You basically take your figurine and move it the number of spaces that they have on their speed. So Frost can move 3 spaces per movement action. So if I take 2 movement actions, he can move a total of 6 spaces. Attack, if you're within line of sight of an alien, you can attack them. You basically roll a 10-sided die and try to get below your aim number to hit the alien. If the alien gets hit, it dies. The alien figurines represent, there are tokens you put underneath the figurines to represent a swarm of aliens. So you might have an alien figurine with 2 tokens underneath it, which means that swarm is actually 3 aliens, and you have to attack, basically do 3 different attacks, or use something that can hit all of them, like flamethrower and weapons like that. Barricade lets you put up a barricade at a door, so it basically prevents aliens from getting through it. Aliens can, of course, try to tear it down and get through it. They can actually roll to see if they do that. Interact is if there's like a computer terminal, you can do an action to interact with it and do certain things. In the first mission I played last night, there was a computer terminal, and if you pass the tech roll at that terminal, you're able to look at a face-down blip token. We'll get to blip tokens in a little bit, but basically they spawn on the map and they have a number underneath. They're white on basically the blip tokens kind of look like these. And there's numbers under each of those tokens that'll represent how many aliens actually spawn in. So you could use a computer terminal to actually peek at one of those tokens and be like, okay, maybe we don't want to go in that room because there's a token in there that spawns 3 aliens, that kind of thing. And then you could rest. Resting is how you recycle cards out of the deck, or out of the exhaust deck back into the endurance deck. So we looked at weapons. You have 2 types of weapons in the game. There are primary weapons, and then there are backup weapons. So, for example, this pistol is a backup weapon, while a pulse rifle, flamethrower, smart gun are primary weapons. Most of the time, you can attach 2 weapons. You can attach a primary, like a pulse rifle, and the pistol. I had with Hicks, I was kind of being thematic. I had him with his pulse rifle and his shotgun. Certain weapons, like the smart gun, don't allow you to take a backup weapon, just because the gun is bulky and it's a 2-handed weapon, and it's hard to switch between them. Or actually, it's pretty much impossible to switch between them. I think in the movie, Drake runs out of ammo on his and actually has to he throws the smart gun down, like disconnects it, and then pulls out a flamethrower instead. But the fact that you can't have a backup weapon on there represents kind of like how big and bulky it is. There is then also equipment cards. So we have a helmet here. There's helmets. There's armor. There's other kinds of like medical scanners and things like that. And each equipment does something different. So this is a helmet. So it says if you fail a defense roll, reveal a card from the top of the deck, and then if the card that you reveal is green, you count as passing the roll. If it's blue, you exhaust this card. So meaning it then gets discarded. Like the aliens, maybe in your attack they knocked it off of you, or they broke the helmet, or you maybe ducked out of the way, but it fell off, that kind of thing. So once it's exhausted, you then have to get another helmet out, like potentially later in the game, and attach it. Each character here has, here's Hicks, on the left and right, on each side, those are your weapon slots, and below them are your equipment slots. You start the game off fully equipped generally, so he can have a weapon and a backup weapon and 2 equipment. Once the equipment gets broken or used or exhausted, it gets put into the exhaust pile. And later, let's say you get another piece of body armor in your hand, you then actually have to pay the cost to actually attach that. So those are the cards, or the weapons and the equipment. There are also event cards. So I have these sleeved up because apparently from what I remember reading, the card quality is not all that great. So I sleeve these up in GameGenic sleeves pretty much right away. So this events can be played pretty much at any time, even not on your turn. But this event costs 2, and then it says okay, what do I do? Event 2 cost. It says set a character's aim dial to that character's aim number. So basically, you could out of turn set another character's aim dial back to what it was before they've reset it, because the aim dial it's used in attacking aliens, but it's also used when aliens attack you, because you get a defensive shot when they attack. So obviously, the higher your aim dial, the more likely it is when the alien comes in to attack you, you'll actually kill it before it actually does any damage with your defensive shot. There's that one. Here's another one called Stop Your Grinning, 0 cost. So it says reveal a card. So you take your top card from the endurance deck, look at it, and then revealed cards then get put into the exhaust pile. But if it's green, it says search the exhaust pile for any one card and add it to your hand. I used that last night to get back a card that let me take an additional action because I really wanted to move out of the area as fast as possible. So I took that card and then played it and was able to do another move. But if it's yellow, it says look at the top 5 cards of the motion tracker deck. Choose to put any of those cards on the bottom of the deck, returning the rest to the top in any order. So, motion tracker deck, we'll get to in just a bit, but this is the motion tracker deck. There are 3 levels in there. There is kind of like, there's easy, intermediate, and hard. And they're kind of like put in there randomly. So, there are going to be some motion tracker cards that do a lot more, some that do nothing at all. There's some that are like just false alarms. But this will allow you to kind of manipulate that deck and things like that. Then there is hazards. Hazards are these red cards, and these are very bad. So this is game over, man. So basically, hazard, it says basically if you get this card, you have to reveal cards until you reveal a blue card, or you have revealed 5 cards. Discard all revealed cards. If you discard one or more red cards, this way, shuffle this back into the deck, or into the exhaust pile. So you're revealing cards until you hit a blue, or you reveal 5. You're then discarding those cards. Those cards are now not in the endurance deck. They're not in the exhausted pile. They're just discarded. There are some ways to get cards out of the discard pile, but it's not as easy as getting cards back out of the exhaust pile. So it's basically giving you less options, less cards in that deck. And again, once that deck runs out, it's just game over. So then it says also if you discarded any red cards, any hazards, this hazard goes back into the exhaust pile, meaning it can potentially show up again once you reshuffle if it gets put back into the main deck somehow. So that one is particularly pretty dangerous. So those are the cards that you get for there. Again, there are weapon cards, equipment cards, event cards, and hazards, and they're all different colors. So reds are hazards, green is equipment, yellow is events, and blue is weapons. Then I'm going to move into the motion tracker deck. Motion tracker deck is a deck that is set up, and basically when you reveal motion tracker cards, it's going to add more aliens to the map. So we have, that's an easy motion tracker card. That's kind of like an intermediate motion tracker card. And this is a hard motion tracker card. So when you reveal the top card of the top card, let's see if that's the top card, flip it over, and you do what it says here. So this is an alien scout. It's going to generate 1 blip token, which is right here. It's going to generate that token at location 4 on the map. In the mission tiles, it'll show you basically where to set those up. So, for example, this is the first mission in the game. This is where you're trying to find Newt. But we have here locations on these 4 maps. So there is location 1, location 2, like 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, for example, this one says exhaust. Okay, basically it spawns 1 blip token at location 4. So you basically take a blip token and put it near that token there, and that's at location 4. And then it has another ability. It says exhaust 1 card from each character within line of sight of this blip when it spawns. So if there's people near it, like let's say there's 2 players that are near this blip when it spawns in, that'll be 2 cards put from the endurance deck into the exhaust deck. If there's no characters near the alien when it spawns in, you don't have to do that. So that's kind of an easy motion tracker card. We have this intermediate one, so when you flip it over, you have it right there. And this is Alien Assault, so this spawns 1 token at location 3 on the map. And then it says, if the spawn point already has a blip or alien model, move this blip 4 spaces towards the nearest character. So basically, it spawns in, it checks to see if there's any other aliens and or blip tokens in the area. And then, if there are, this alien starts moving towards the character that it's closest to. On the map, there are doors. Doors are basically always closed unless somebody is near it. So if the alien doesn't have if the alien has line of sight on it, they'll basically always move toward the closest character, even if they're behind doors and that kind of thing. So that generates a blip there, and the blips all have numbers underneath them. Once you have them in a pool, kind of just like this, and you draw them randomly, put them on the map, and once those blips get seen by characters or they move into line of sight of other characters, those blips get flipped over. Once a blip is flipped over, it'll tell you how many aliens actually spawn there. So you take your alien model, you take your, let's say it spawns in 2, you take one model, one token, and the model will sit on top of the token, representing 2 aliens at that location. And finally, we have harder motion tracker cards. So you flip it over. These are the flanking aliens. So it generates 2 tokens at location 3. And then it says players must choose to either exhaust 4 cards or place one more blip at location 1. So basically this one shows up, it generates 2 tokens, so it's going to generate at least 2 aliens, depending on what kind of blips or what the numbers underneath are. Or it could generate, at the max, 6 aliens, because they could both be blips that have 3s underneath them. So players then have a choice. They can either they have to choose to either exhaust 4 cards from the deck, or you can also exhaust it at your hand, I believe as well. Or they place one more blip at location 1. You might want to look at the map and say, like, okay, like location 1, we've already been through location 1. We got what we wanted in location 1. We're heading away from location 1 right now. So let the alien spawn in location 1, and because we probably won't have to deal with that alien anyway. But if there are characters near location 1, they may choose to, exhaust the cards so we don't have to deal with another alien at their, or another group of aliens at their location. So it's all kind of, basically very situational. So one thing I really like with this game is the theme feels very much like the movie. When you're patrolling areas, you have aliens that are moving around, the blip tokens are moving around. You know that these tokens exist, but you don't know what's underneath them. You may walk into a room and flip a token, and it might just be a false alarm. You may walk into a room and have it flip a token that is 3 aliens, and now you have to deal with fighting 3 of these aliens. The next thing we have are the mission tiles here, or mission parameters. So this is the first mission in the game. This is the one I played last night. This is Newt. So you have these in the game. There's going to be blip tokens, and then there's these 4 other blip tokens that kind of have these white borders. Those are specific to this mission only. 3 of those, I believe some of those tokens will have aliens on them. One of them will have Newt. The other one, I think, is a false alarm. It doesn't have anything. But basically, you need to go in there. In this mission, you need to find Newt and get Newt out the exit over on this side. Mission starts off with 2 blips up here, so those will actually move around and move toward players and try to attack them. And again, you're not going to know how many aliens are in that location until you actually get in that location and you can reveal those tokens. So after that, we have the mission boards here. These mission boards are double-sided. So again, you have Hadley's Hope on one side, and again, the Atmosphere Processing Plant on the other. And the first mission with Newt is using just the Hadley's Hope side of the map. So in that mission, you're taking turns moving around, trying to locate Newt. There's a computer terminal that you can use. The computer terminal has a really cool ability. Is once you use it, you can actually, the computer terminals will do different stuff depending on what mission you're in. But in that one, it lets you look at a face-down blip token. So basically, it's like you're using the computer to look at security camera footage or something. You can then potentially flip over one of the tokens in the bottom left where Newt is to see, maybe hopefully reveal the one that has her on it. Or if you're curious about how many aliens are in the other room, you can spawn the token and do it that way. So that's the basic layout of the game. And basically you take turns, players will take turns moving around, attacking aliens, interacting with objects, trying to complete their missions. Aliens will move around, attack players, and that kind of thing. Basically, you're rolling dice to see if you hit the alien or not. The aliens, when they attack you, you're rolling dice to see if you can defend. Aliens, I actually had a character last night get just completely obliterated and get killed. So I had, it was Frost is the one character last night in my game that actually got killed. He was on his grunt side, but what had happened was some aliens were there. They attacked him. He did his defensive fire attack, or his defensive fire action. Wasn't able to kill the aliens before the attack. They attacked. He failed his defense roll, and then when the alien did its attack, it actually rolled the maximum amount, which is basically if the aliens roll, I believe, a 10, they just kill you right away. Other times, the aliens will actually knock you down, and they'll attempt to basically pull you out of the map and bring you to the hive. I think there's a mission in the game later where you can actually try to rescue anybody that's been captured. But there's three core missions. I think it's called Newt is the first one. Then there is Escape Escape, where you're basically playing in the atmosphere processing plant, and you have one squad of Marines trying to basically work their way through the processing plant and get to the I think it's the APC that Ripley crashes through the wall. You're trying to get from basically the far right of the map to the far left, where Ripley, Gorman, and Burke and Newt are in the movie. They're in that tank like thing, and you're trying to basically work your way through this processing plant, and there's just tons of aliens everywhere. And then there's a third mission. I haven't actually looked at that mission yet, so I'm not sure what that one entails. And then there are bug hunt missions, which I think are just more like survive, like basically like survive and that kind of thing. We're going to get into some pros and cons here for this game because there's a lot of pros, but there's actually, unfortunately, there are quite a few cons as well. So pros, the game is very thematic. It feels like there's actual, tension when you're exploring rooms where the aliens are spawning and you don't know how many aliens are going to show up. So the tension and the theme of the game are really good. The models look really good, but we're going to get, that's also a con we'll get to a little bit later in the video. So models look cool, and then I see some really good paint jobs on Reddit where people have actually like done amazing paint jobs with these figurines. I'm not particularly good at painting, but I've painted, like I said, I painted Newt and I painted Gorman. I'm gonna go through. I actually bought like camouflage colors for most of the Marines, and I bought some like blue and black for Ripley because she's got like the yellow or the blue. Not yellow, I don't know why I said yellow, but the black leather jacket with the kind of like blue jumpsuit she's wearing on or wearing underneath it. So the endurance deck is also cool because it adds kind of like another thing to build tension because as you play cards, as you exhaust cards, that deck is going to get smaller and smaller. And again, once that deck is gone, once the exhaust deck is gone, it's just game over. So that you kind of have to manage, and that's a really cool like addition right there. And I like that the character cards are double sided. So when you're basically playing, players will choose a character and play as hero form. The other characters will be controlled as grunts, and certain characters can actually activate a certain number of grunts on their turn. So, for example, Corporal Hicks here can activate, after his turn, he can activate 2 grunt characters. I think Gorman can activate 3. I think like the least you can activate is 1. I think some of the privates, like is it Hudson? Yeah, Hudson can activate because he's a private. Can activate 1 additional grunt. Hudson or Hicks can activate 2. Gorman can activate 3. I think Apone, who is in the Ultimate Badasses expansion, can activate 2 more as well. They don't have minis for Spunkmeyer and Farah, I think her name is, the pilots. I guess because most of the time they're not really in the movie. They basically fly the ship down, they land, and then they basically, when they're trying to go to evacuate the other Marines, they just get killed by an alien. So they don't really do much, but figurines for those characters would be cool. So what else do we have for pros here? Okay, those are all the pros. And we're getting into the cons. So, cons, it's not necessarily marketed, or at least on the box, labeled as a miniatures game. So, I knew going in that it was because I watched a review saying how the figurines, you have to basically cut them out of the sprues. See, I have a sprue right here for the Ultimate Badasses expansion. So, hero characters come on these kinds of sprues. Hero characters are actually really easy to build. The aliens are a total pain to build, though. And it feels like almost like there was 2 design teams working on these sculpts, because the character figurines, for example, Burke is literally just one piece of plastic. You cut him off of here, you glue him to his base, and he's done. Unless you want to paint him or something like that. For example, Apone is just 2 pieces. It's basically his legs, torso are all one piece, and then you glue his head on. That's it. The aliens are all 6 pieces, not including the bases. So it's the aliens are a head, 2 body halves that connect, the tail, 2 arms, and the base. So 7 pieces including the base, while the Marines are going to be 3 to 4 pieces including the base, generally. The aliens are kind of a pain to build. Like, they're like getting the tails on is kind of a pain, and getting the stuff to stay. Their bases are really bad too. Like, the humans have these holes in the bases, which is really nice because you can actually see there's holes in them. And then the human figurines all have these pegs on their feet. So you can basically put some glue on the peg, drop it right into the base, and it's good to go. I also secure the other foot with a little bit of glue and glue that onto the base. The bases will then have the names of the characters kind of embossed on them, like that. So it's easy to tell who's who. But the alien bases are a lot harder to get their fingers to glue to because the aliens' feet are very pointed. There are slots on the base to actually attach them to, but they don't attach very well. So it feels like there was two different teams working on the models. Um, they should have, at least with the aliens, done the same thing with these bases where each alien foot had a peg that you could just glue into here, because that would make gluing them to the bases so much easier. Like, I'm not even done building the aliens. I built enough to play through one mission. I think I have 4 more aliens to build because there's a total of 16 of them. The aliens are customizable, though, to a degree. There's different head types for the aliens. So there is aliens that have their mouth closed, aliens that have their mouths open, and then aliens that have their mouths open with their extra tongue that has teeth on it, whatever that's called. You can also, the arms and tails are all interchangeable, so you can kind of customize how the arms are posed. I have some aliens with their arms like up like this, some where their arms are just down, and some where they're like in a running position, kind of like that, or like that. And then their tails, you can kind of have them going, straight back with a curling kind of like above them like this, or curling down, or going off to the side. So the customization options are cool. It's just that the aliens are quite a pain to build. I'm not great at building models. I've done some stuff for Warhammer. I think it was built some I think it was called Savage Orcs. I built those for Warcry. Those were pretty easy to build. Star Wars Legion stuff is also really easy to build generally. Star Wars Legion figurines are more in line with these. Like with Star Wars Legion, you're attaching sometimes a head, sometimes an arm, sometimes a leg, that kind of thing. With the aliens, it's a lot more difficult to build. And like I said, I'm not necessarily new at building models. I'm not particularly great at it, but I definitely have had these aliens have probably been the toughest thing that I've had to assemble across all of those games. So what else? It takes quite a bit. The board takes up quite a bit of space. I wasn't even able to play it on the table behind me. Um, I had to play it on kind of on the floor, like across it or next to it, because you have the board. The board each map is usually made up of 4 different boards and arranged differently for different locations. And then you have off to the side, you have all your character cards with cards going to like a weapon, equipment, and that takes quite a bit of space, as well as you got to have room for your aim dial, for the tokens. So the game, even solo player, because you're single player, you are still activating all the other characters. Even if a single player game is taking up quite a bit of space, so you definitely need quite a large play area to play it on. Another thing is the quality on these cards here and some of these cardboard pieces is not all that good. I remember reading or listening to a review that was saying, this unsleeve this card here, like the card stock is fairly flimsy. So basically, before I even played the game, I was sleeving cards up already. I have a piece in here, like a cardboard piece that's already showing slight damage, even though I haven't even really used it yet. Let me see which one it was. It was Burke. Yeah, so right here, you can kind of barely notice it, but that corner is already kind of peeled on him. I haven't even used this character or even punched these tiles out of their thing yet. So the components, at least the card opponents or components and cardboard, is a little bit on the weak side. And then finally, the final kind of con of this game is it can be quite a huge investment to get into the game. So you're looking at $60 for the base set, and then you're going to need, if you want to build the figurines, you're going to need at least the glue and some clippers to clip them out of their sprues. You could probably potentially get away with not building the aliens and just use the alien tokens that are like that you punch out. But then you may run out of those depending on how many blips are spawning. You could probably get away with using those tokens at least on the first mission, but I don't know about the second or third missions or the bug hunts. So at some point you're going to want to build those figurines, and you'll need, again, at least clippers and glue to build them. And again, it's kind of misleading on the boxes because they don't tell you that it requires any assembly. The figurines just, I believe, Star Wars Legion at least lets you know. I think I haven't looked at Legion for a while, but I believe you going in, you know that you're playing a miniatures game that you're going to be required to build. This one's more marketed toward as a board game, and not necessarily like a miniatures like war game like Warhammer or Legion. So some players may go in not knowing that. They get home, they open the game, and then realize that now they need to purchase glue, clippers, maybe paint. You can paint them, you don't have to paint them. At least the aliens are already printed or on black plastic. You again can of course paint those. I painted mine with some Chaos Black primer and some I think it's Black Templar Citadel paint, which is a contrast paint. But base game is going to be $60. The Get Away from Her expansion is also 60. That adds into the game. It adds the Alien Queen. It adds Ripley in the power suit, the power loader. It adds a new figurine of Ripley and Newt together, where she's kind of carrying Newt, but also holding the kind of the flamethrower machine gun that she tapes together. And then it includes two Bishop models, which is one of Bishop intact and one of him cut in half. And then I believe that one actually adds more maps. It adds maps for the Sulaco, or like the landing bay or something like that. And I think like the landing platform from LV-426. Um, and then it adds rules to actually play as the aliens. So at some point I might get that. But again, it's kind of a large investment because you're looking at, for all three expansion or the core game and all two expansions, you're looking at like probably at least $150 because the core game is 60, the Get Away from Her expansion is 60, and then the Ultimate Badasses expansion is 30. So it could be quite expensive. And then especially if you throw in the cost of getting clippers, getting paint, getting glue. Luckily, I already had all that equipment, and I knew going in that I was going to need it because I watched another review of the game. But it would just be very frustrating, like getting that game home and realizing that you now have to not only spend time assembling these figurines, but also that you might have to go out and buy additional equipment to do that. I just wish on the box that it mentioned anything about assembly. I didn't notice anything about it on there, but again, I knew going in because I watched a review with that earlier. But those cons aside, from what I've played so far, I think the game is really fun. It's very thematic. It definitely feels like you are kind of like reliving moments from that movie. There's definitely like a sense of like dread when you are like flipping over the blip tokens to see how many aliens are going to show up. There's a sense of dread when you're adding more tokens to the map as the more and more aliens start swarming the map and all that kind of thing. So I think like the gameplay and the theme are pretty strong. The cons I don't think make it to where I wouldn't recommend it. I'm still really enjoying it. If you like miniatures games, if you like aliens, if you like cooperative games, it's probably worth checking out. But just know going in, again, you have to assemble miniatures. Like some of the components aren't all that strong, like the cards and the cardboard aren't all that great. The board, like again, you're going to need a large enough table to set up all this stuff. It's not quite as like large of a table like you would need for like a Warhammer game or anything like that. But like I said, that little card table behind me isn't enough to really support the game and have all the characters out with all their equipment on. But aside from that, I'm enjoying it. I'm going to try to get the rest of the aliens finished. I think I have 4 more of those aliens to build, and then I'll probably build the other characters from the Ultimate Badasses expansion. Potentially maybe get some of them painted. But that's going to do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching, and take care.